I finally decided on a message. I know this is a little late. It's the middle of the week. I was going with Sundays. But I'm going to do my take on what Jesus says is the greatest commandment. It's BibleGateway.com/passage !search equals Mattthew percentage 2022 N version NIV. This has the whole verses plus the rest of the chapter, but I'm going to find the one I want to read. Okay, here's what they call the greatest commandment passage. The greatest commandment, verses 34 through 40 of the Matthew chapter 22. The greatest commandment. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. Verse 35. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. 36. Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law? 37. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. 38. This is the first and greatest commandment. 39. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. 40. All the law and prophets hang on these two commandments. Now this puts the emphasis in perspective. Who do we obey when some of the other commandments are cited? One of the other commandments was honor your father and mother, for example. But if they don't honor God, you can't do everything they say. God wants us to have certain behavioral attributes, and we're not supposed to violate these attributes. We can't just, if our mother and father are involved in, say, witchcraft, and God says we're not to use witchcraft, we cannot cast spells. If your mother and father worship idols or the devil, you can't honor their commands if they don't align with what God wants you to do. So what comes first is love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. You must obey him first and foremost if you're a Christian. The second is important, but what we are saying is the first one tells you what you must do. It's not as important to honor your father and mother as it is to obey God. And that is the truth. If your father and mother order you to do something against God's will, you're just going to have to ignore them, or maybe leave their house, or if they don't do the right thing, you can't let them force it on you. If they're doing something that's right, you can help them with it. But when they're obviously not doing what God wants you to do, you should not honor that, because that is a bad thing. You don't want to place yourself in hell over what your parents wanted you to do. And you should try to teach them the right way to act if they don't act appropriately. And if they don't like it, I guess you'll just have to part ways if they get to be on your nerves too much with this, whatever this other stuff they believe in. And trying to force it on you is not a good thing. Okay? This is where God overlooks that later commandment. He wants you to do the right thing, not just allow yourselves to be used by people to do their will because that's what they want. It has to align with what God wants you to do. And the second, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, that's really important too. Because you have to have respect for the neighbor. But I'm mostly focusing on the first commandment with my words. And so that's pretty much all I have to say about that topic right now. Just know that these two commandments supersede any further commandments and law, as Jesus is saying. With verse 40, it says, all the law and prophets hang on these two commandments. And you've got to understand that that is right. Thank you for listening. See you next week.